All right, we have today on the Moms Without Capes podcast, Meredith Raber. Welcome to the show, Meredith.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
So, Meredith is the owner of Meredith Raber Virtual Assistant Services, a virtual assistance agency for female entrepreneurs. With a background in corporate advertising and online business, she provides strategic marketing direction and manages day-to-day tasks. Meredith aims to build long-term client relationships and mentors new virtual assistants. In her free time, she enjoys beach outings with her family. Today, Meredith and I will be chatting all about how to become a virtual assistant. So, before we dive into that, can you share with us more about your journey and what brought you to be where you are today?
Yes, because I never thought I would be an entrepreneur. So, for anyone out there that never thinks they're going to be an entrepreneur, I have a story for you. I was a corporate girl all the way. I worked in corporate advertising, loved it. I loved every minute of it. I loved being a part of a team and working on big clients. We got to do TV commercials. Loved everything. But then I had my second son and I realized I live in LA, so traffic too is a big deal. I realized the hours and demands of my corporate job just weren't working for us anymore. I wanted to be home, but I wanted to do what I was doing before. So I kind of just took a pause and I was like, I'll figure it out. Like, I don't know. And then I found the world of virtual assistants. And this was 2017. So no one really knew what virtual assistants was. No one really was like working at home, like it wasn't, I was so in the corporate funnel of things that I had no idea that people were doing this. And so I met a VA. She was an executive VA, a friend of my dad's, and she was like, you could totally do this. You could just do it for marketing. And I'm like, really? I don't know. And so I kind of just started. I had no idea what a virtual assistant was in the beginning. I didn't have a lot of time. I had two babies under two. And I just kind of launched my business and jumped in and started helping small business owners with marketing, mostly social media marketing in the beginning, since it was something I knew. And I kind of went from there. And now 6 years this month, which is crazy. I run Meredith Raber Virtual Assistant Services, and we're a boutique virtual assistant agency. And I have six amazing women working with me, helping my clients, helping my mentees. I also help VAs get into the business, start their business, or scale. So if they want to go into like a team, like agency type, I help them there because I really wish I had help. Like I look back and think, if I had a mentee or a coach, or maybe I would have gotten to my goals faster. So that's kind of why I started the last 2 years mentoring new VAs.
Sure. We were just talking about that the other day about how coach is like the fast track. Like when you hire a coach, it's the fast track to whatever your goal is.
Yes.
So, okay. So that's an awesome story. And I want to take it back to actually what is a virtual assistant? Because this is why I was excited to have you on the show, because I have, since starting my own business, I didn't know what a virtual assistant was. I had never heard of it. I had no idea. Like they would see like VA, I think immediately like Veterans Administration because my husband was in the
People
army.
still do. It's
Yeah,
okay.
so I like did not even get what that even was. And now that I know, I have clients who, a lot of stay-at-home moms or women who are like thinking about going back into the workforce, but they're not really sure. Plus, they're having to juggle like kids, like domestic responsibilities, like all of the things that we moms have to do or think we have to do. But we have all of these responsibilities. And so I always bring up the VA. And so many times they're like, what is that? In fact, there was a funny thing, like one of my clients I shared with her, I'm like, why don't you look into like virtual assisting? And she's like, what's that? And I started sharing with her. And like, I'm glad you're coming on today to explain more about what that is, because for me, I kind of just know like I was paying attention to like how I could use a VA in my business, but I know that the tasks and like it's kind of, it's endless, like about what a VA can actually do. And so I started explaining to her. The next day she messaged me back and she said she looked on Indeed and she's like, I got a job as a virtual assistant. I'm like, what? You didn't even know what it was yesterday. So like I always use her as an example when I'm talking to other, I'm like, in fact, one of my other clients, like, because I found it so like, I find it so fascinating. And I think that it's such a great opportunity, especially for moms. So can you share with us more about what the basic thing, like what is a virtual assistant?
So, a virtual assistant, if we bring it down to the basics, is basically someone who's assisting business owners from home. They run their own business. Now, VAs kind of turned into a unicorn term, right? So, I think in the beginning, VAs, and I'm saying the beginning, maybe like early 2000s, 2010, probably was more helping with admin work, like calendars, that kind of thing, like the background. But now VAs can do so much for online businesses and other small businesses if you're brick and mortar. Everything from social media management to podcast management to designing, graphic design. A lot of designers call themselves VAs. It just depends. But the tasks they can do could be anything. Really, anybody that needs assistance and they're working from home can be a VA, right? So you could, if you're interested in social media management, if you're interested in maybe office tasks or something you like to do, to-dos, that's definitely something that small business owners have. So it's kind of turned into a unicorn term. Really, you can translate almost any skill you already have from a job into a VA business.
Who would hire a virtual assistant?
Well, I would say 2 years ago, I would have said online business owners. Now I would say all business owners. I feel like virtual assistants is being like so much more well known now that maybe somebody only needs five. The reason most business owners hire VA is because they might not need a full-time employee. They might not need someone 35 hours a week, 40 hours a week. Maybe they just need 5 hours of assistance. Well, that's the great thing about being a VA. You can work as much or as little as you want. If you want to work 40-hour weeks, you can. If you want to work 10-hour weeks, you can. So I think it offers small business owners a lot of flexibility because as small business owners, we're paying attention to the budget. We need to make sure that the help and the outsourcing we're doing can fit within what we can pay for. So I think that's why the virtual assistance business also has like boomed because people are realizing, wow, I could get 20 hours of assistance for a month. Like think of how much stuff that would get off my plate. And for them to be able to work on sales or work with their clients or depending on their business owners. So I really think a virtual assistant could work for any type of business owner now.
And would somebody like a small business owner, would they hire a virtual assistant who kind of focuses on one task? Or are there assistants that like would focus on a multitude of tasks? Like how does that work?
So I think that's a great question. So I think there's two kind of different VA routes you can go, right? So you can hire someone hourly. So this person might be more of like a generalist. So they could be doing lots of tasks for you. Say they're helping you with a little bit with an admin, and I'll use you as an example. Maybe they're helping a little bit with your podcast management. Maybe they're monitoring your inbox a little bit, and you're just paying them for hours. So say you're like, I need 20 hours a month. And they're more of a generalist. But if you're looking for someone who specializes in something, so say social media management, that's something we specialize in, you would hire them for the service. So you want social media management. Okay, we specialize in that. I can give you strategy for that. This is what we're going to do. So I think it's more of like you're either going to hire a VA that's hourly or you're going to hire out your service that you need. Or like podcast management is another one. Say you're like, I want to help with my podcast. I just want to record and have someone else do the rest, then you could outsource the podcast management to more of like a service provider. So that's more of what we are. We're more of like an agency, so we can take on services for you.
So on the other side, like on the VA side, if a person is looking to become a VA, where would they start? Like, I mean, do the VAs, like, do they own their own business? Is it like a whole business or working for an agency, or like, what would be the first place to even start if that's something that, I mean, I told you my client looked on Indeed, but like, what would be the steps?
So I always recommend that you start as an hourly VA. That's how I started. I didn't really know what I was doing. I wasn't sure what kind of services I wanted to offer. And I had my own business. Like I never really worked for a VA agency or anything. I just reached out to my family and friends and let them know about my business. And I was like, if you or anyone you know needs help, like let me know. And that's how I got my first clients. So I always recommend that you start hourly because you can kind of figure out what you want to do. Maybe you're really into website design and you start helping a client with their blogs or something like that, or you really like calendar management. You love interacting with your clients' clients. You know, you like inbox management. It's really good to start from there when you're first getting your bearings. And let's be honest, you don't really know how long things are going to take you. Like you don't want to shortcut yourself either. So being hourly is good because you're getting paid for the amount of time you're putting in, right? And you can also figure out like maybe you only want to work 10 hours a week. That's fine. And you can have one client or maybe that's two clients. But I always recommend, starting hourly and you make your own business. So that's the best part about it. And I think that was hard for me coming from being an employee for so long and like loving being told like this is what you need to do.
Yeah, that direction. Yeah,
it was like so much. I mean, now I love it so much, but I remember it was a little hard at first being like, wait, so I could do whatever I want? Like I can work with whoever I want, but it really is true. Like if a client's not feeling aligned, you can just be like, I don't think this is a good fit, you know? And that's like the best part about it.
How did you get clients?
So the
like
first
you said about family friends, but like beyond.
Yeah. So the first step I took was, and it was so scary, was to email my family and friends because I was worried, like many people are, like, what if this doesn't turn into a legit business? And like,
And did you know that you were going to do social media for them, or were you more of that generalist?
So I started way back when doing general admin because I thought it would be easy to get in. I was like, I figure like everybody needs help with like their back end office operations. It's something I was on account management. So it was something very easy for me. And then social media management, I just like to do. I love to do it. And I had a marketing background. So I just jumped in and those were the two services I offered right from the start because I already knew how to do them. And so I did, family and friends was first. That's how I got my first clients. And then there's different resources online that actually post VA jobs. So there's lots of different job boards you can find. And that helps me in the beginning, especially just not only gaining confidence, but like being able to be like, yes, I do this, you know, like I picked up a couple projects. I did a couple different things. I worked with different people. It was good to like work on my systems to like, okay, this is what happens when I get a new client. And then honestly, it's a lot of referrals. Like once I started working with other people, they're like, hey, do you think you could do this? And I just said, yes. Like the first two, I was like, yeah, I can do it. I can do it. I'll do it. And then, I kind of went from there. And then obviously I started like social media marketing. And so I got clients through there too.
Can you talk more about like, why is this an ideal job for moms specifically?
I find it so I just like pinch myself sometimes because when I was in corporate, I didn't know there was any other way. You know, like I just thought like this is what I have to do being in LA, you know, we need dual incomes. So that I always knew I was going to have to work and figure that out. And that's why I want to motivate other women that it's actually possible. And it's so ideal for a mom because you get to work from home, which I know now a lot of people are doing. But when I started, it was like not work from home. Only like lucky salespeople got to do it. Also, flexibility. So if you want to replace your 9-to-5 income, you can. If you don't, say you're just looking for a little incremental income and you're like, and you want to fill your professional cup for yourself, and you want one client, you're like, I just want it for me. You can do that too, you know? So there's a lot of flexibility, even as we come into seasons, right? When we have children, we have many different seasons. Now I have 3 children. So I had a maternity leave. And as the kids go into different schools, there's many different seasons and my client workflow flows with it. So if I don't have childcare, I have to figure that out. If I have a lot of childcare, maybe I'll take on more clients, you know, that kind of thing. So the flexibility of being able to work as much as you want and when, you know, like no client's telling you have to be working 9 to 5. Maybe you're only going to work for a while, I worked at 5 a.m. in the morning because I did it before my kids
Yeah.
got up until 7, you know, or I worked from 9 to 12 at night because that's just what works for me at the time. So I think making your own schedule is something that is great, and like I couldn't be more thankful for.
Are they mostly like ongoing or project? Because like that flexibility is, you can only really get that like if you're not having to like be on meetings with the person or like be able to like, are they project based or are there deadlines or like how does that work?
So it totally depends. I always recommend you want retainer clients, right? We want ongoing clients. That's
Mhm.
always the ultimate goal. But in the beginning, sometimes it is just project based. You know, it might be, I need help, a research project. I need this, I need that. But that's really only building our resume and our portfolio for the retainer clients. I think, because how are you going to rely on that income, right? If it
Yeah.
is something you need to rely on, we all need income at some point, you know? So I always recommend, we want ongoing clients. And yes, they might have a status meeting with you maybe once a month, once every 2 weeks or something, but you talk about that beforehand. You make sure it can fit into your schedule. And maybe if they are, you know, I've had a lot of mentees that they're like, oh, they want to be on the phone all the time, or they want to meet on Zoom all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? Maybe it's just like not a great fit. Like maybe just let
Right.
them know, like I've got babies in the background. Like this isn't gonna work. Like I can't work at noon or whatever time.
Right. Right.
So that's kind of like as you go, you kind of learn what those boundaries are for you.
Okay.
But yes, retainer clients, I think ongoing clients are always the goal, even if it's just one. Like we want it to be, we want to know what's coming and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So any other advice or anything that you can offer that I did not ask you?
Hmm. Oh, if you are thinking about being a VA, go for it. Because I was so scared and still, and like putting my business out there to my family and friends. I was like, what if it doesn't, you know, make it? What if I never get a client? Because at the time,
Yeah, all those self-doubts.
yeah, so much self doubts. It's just try. You're never going to be upset because you tried. You know, you're
Mhm.
gonna be upset if you think like, I should have tried that. I should have done that, you know? And also, if you are having, you know, issues getting started, get help, get a course, get a mentor, get a coach. Like there's lots of different ways. And, you know, coaches, they've seen virtual assistants. I'm a coach. There's tons of people, virtual assistant businesses are out there. They know how to get established. So just get some help. I feel like if I got more help earlier, I would have like crushed my goals way faster, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so let's switch over. I want to thank you so much for talking. That was so much information, and I hope that I know that my listeners are going to find value from that. But let's turn it over and see, how do you have fun? I love asking my guests this because often as moms we forget to include that.
Yes. You read a little bit about it in my bio. I live in the South Bay by LA. So we do a lot of beach time, but I also like going out with my friends. I feel like I'm making that more of a priority these days. I just my daughter is 2.5, so she's getting to a better age now that I
Mhm.
be around as much, and going out with my friends, making time to either do workout classes together, going to dinner, you know, friend time, I think is a big deal.
Yeah, nice, nice. And then do you have a book that you could recommend?
I do. We Should All Be Millionaires by Rachel Rogers.
Yes.
Have you read
I've
it?
read that book. Yeah. Yeah. It's a
Okay,
great
so
book.
I love it. And I think people by the title might not think it is what it is, but I read it 2 summers ago and it changed my whole perspective on my business.
Mhm.
It talks about outsourcing and what you can do to really up yourself. And I recommend that book to everyone. I loved it. It was transformative for me.
Nice. Yeah, I read it probably a few years ago and I really loved it. It was a great book.
Yeah.
All right. And then finally, where can listeners find you?
Oh, well, I like to hang out on Instagram. So you can finally find me at Meredith Raber VA as my handle, or my website. I have tons of resources if you are interested in starting a VA business. And that's just meredithraber.com.
All right. Awesome. I'm going to put all of your links in the show notes of today's episode. Meredith, thank you so much for joining us and sharing with us your wisdom.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.